named John.
Hmm.
And, this is a really cool topic to dive into, and I have so many questions.
Absolutely.
So, in this deep dive,
Yeah.
what we want to do is sort of get past the surface level of this summary
Yeah.
and really pull out some of the core ideas, some of the stuff that's actually actionable that you can take
Right.
and use in your own life,
Exactly.
and help people understand how this idea of like attracts like really might be influencing their lives more than they even realize.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I think is really kind of woven its way into the fabric of like a lot of conversations these days.
Yeah.
And I think when we look at the summary, it kind of gives us like the really broad strokes, right? This
Oh.
idea of like attracts,
Yeah,
but what's really fascinating is to really dig into the how and the why behind it.
totally.
It's like thinking about your mental and emotional state is almost like sending out a signal.
Mhm.
And this law suggests that the universe is essentially tuning in to that signal and
Yeah.
reflecting it back to you.
Hmm.
So it's almost like this tool, right? But
Mhm.
like any tool you have to understand how to wield it effectively.
Right. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of this, like attract. Like
Yeah.
the summary starts off with this really bold statement, right?
Yeah.
Thoughts create reality.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to recognize right away that it's not just like random thoughts here or there.
Right.
It's more about like the thoughts that we consistently entertain,
Yeah, absolutely.
and the mental narratives that we're kind of on repeat with, whether we're conscious of it or not.
That's a crucial distinction, I think. Because it's not just like, the occasional positive affirmation
Mm.
while you're stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's about what is the underlying like mental weather system.
Oh, that's good.
Is it generally sunny and optimistic?
Yeah.
Or is it, cloudy with a chance of worry and fear and anxiety?
Right.
And I think the summary points out that when we focus on success consistently,
Hmm.
that can open doors and create opportunities
Mm-hmm.
that align with that focus. But conversely, if if your mind is constantly dwelling on fears,
Right.
potential problems,
Yeah.
then you might be inadvertently drawing those very experiences into your life.
Right.
So it really makes you kind of question, like, what mental radio station are you tuned into, day in and day out?
It really does. I mean, you start to look back at situations and wonder if, maybe it was just, maybe my own mindset played a bigger role than I gave it credit for.
Yeah,
It's like that old saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't. You're right.
precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that leads directly into the next core concept that the summary highlights, which is emotions as a guidance system. So it's describing, our feelings as an internal compass,
Mm-hmm.
signaling whether we're aligned with what we truly desire.
Okay.
So positive emotions like joy, excitement, gratitude, those are kind of like the green lights, saying, hey, you're on the right energetic path.
Okay.
Whereas negative emotions are kind of like the red flags,
Yeah.
suggesting that there's a mismatch between your thoughts and your true desires.
So it's not just about like grinning and bearing it
Right.
with positive thoughts. It's about actually feeling
Exactly.
those positive emotions.
It's embodying it.
Yeah.
It's not just like the universe is listening to our words.
Mm-hmm.
It's picking up on the vibrational frequency
Wow.
of our emotional state.
So it's tuning into like a radio station almost.
Yeah, like an energetic radio station.
Interesting.
And it's giving us feedback.
Interesting.
Your emotions are giving you real-time feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So, the summary really encourages us to become more attuned to those feelings.
Yeah.
And when you think about a particular goal,
Okay.
does it spark genuine enthusiasm or does it feel heavy and filled with anxiety?
Interesting.
Because that emotional response can tell you a lot about your current level of alignment.
Okay, so we got thoughts and feelings working in tandem. Mm-hmm.
But then the summary introduces this idea of belief.
Yeah.
And it's saying that even if you're mentally and emotionally on board with something,
Right.
if there's this deep-seated lack of belief
Yeah.
in your ability to achieve it, it's almost like hitting the brakes on the whole process.
Yeah. It's like you're trying to drive a car with the parking brake on.
Right.
Belief is really the bedrock upon which your manifestations are built.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can have all the positive thoughts and feel good emotions in the world.
Right.
But if deep down you believe you're not worthy or that your goal is impossible,
Yeah.
that underlying belief will often sabotage your efforts.
Interesting.
So the summary, wisely suggests starting small,
Okay.
focusing on goals where you can more easily cultivate a genuine belief,
Mm-hmm.
and then gradually expanding from there.
So it's kind of like working out your belief muscles in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Building those belief muscles. That makes sense. I can definitely think of things aspirations and things that I have, where there's like a little voice in the back of my head that's like, yeah, right.
Right.
And maybe that's where the work needs to happen
Yeah.
before I even start to like try to, put this up into practice.
Absolutely.
And speaking of practicality,
Yeah.
the summary then delves into visualization and affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we actually use these tools?
So visualization is essentially creating a vivid mental movie of your desired outcome in your mind.
Okay.
And the more sensory detail you can incorporate, the better.
Okay.
So what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel?
Yeah.
Even what do you smell?
Right.
The more real it becomes to your subconscious mind.
Interesting.
It's almost like giving your brain a preview of success.
Okay.
Affirmations, on the other hand, are positive statements that you consciously repeat to yourself
Mm-hmm.
to reprogram negative self-talk and reinforce more empowering beliefs.
So it's like, rewiring those neural pathways in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So visualization is like you're creating this compelling image of the future,
Right.
and affirmations are about strengthening the narrative in the present.
Yeah.
It's almost like designing the house.
Yeah.
And then constantly reinforcing the strength of the materials.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. And then we get to gratitude and appreciation,
Yes.
which, just intuitively to me feels like a really powerful tool.
Absolutely. And the summary really emphasizes gratitude as this potent magnet for attracting more of what you desire.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that when you focus on what you're already thankful for, you shift your energetic state from one of lack to one of abundance.
Okay.
And this, in turn, opens you up to receive even more good things.
Interesting.
So the suggestion of keeping a gratitude journal is a simple yet effective way to make this a consistent practice.
Right.
It's like you're actively acknowledging the good in your life,
Mm-hmm.
which then signals to the universe that you're open to receiving even more of it.
It's interesting. I've dabbled in gratitude journaling a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how even on a really bad day, if you can force yourself to find just a few things to appreciate,
Yeah.
it can really shift your perspective.
It's like hitting a reset button on your attitude.
It really is. Yeah.
Really.
Okay. So we've got this positive mindset we're working with.
Mhm.
But then the summary also stresses the importance of action.
Yeah.
But not just any action,
Yeah.
specifically inspired action.
Inspired action.
So can you break down what that means?
Yeah. I think that's such a key nuance because I think a lot of people might misinterpret the law of attraction as being purely passive.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just think happy thoughts and
Uh,
things will magically appear.
Yeah, like I'm just going to sit on my couch
Right, exactly.
and manifest $1 million.
But, the summary makes it clear that you do need to take steps.
Okay.
But inspired action feels different.
Yeah.
It's not driven by desperation or this sense of should, but rather by this inner prompting,
Okay.
this intuitive nudge
Yeah.
towards opportunities that feel aligned with your goals.
So it's almost like the universe is presenting you with these like breadcrumbs.
Yeah,
And inspired action is following those breadcrumbs.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being open to opportunities that resonate with your vision
Mm-hmm.
and taking action from a place of excitement and enthusiasm
Yeah.
rather than, fear or obligation.
Okay. So you're not forcing it. You're flowing with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then finally, as far as core concepts go, we have this idea of letting go of resistance,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds like addressing those internal roadblocks that can sometimes sabotage our best intentions.
Yes, resistance is essentially all of the negative thoughts and doubts and fears and limiting beliefs
Mm-hmm.
that create friction against the flow of positive energy.
So it's kind of like you're trying to swim upstream,
Exactly.
but you've got all of these rocks in the way.
Yeah, all these energetic rocks
Yeah.
weighing you down.
And the summary mentions mindfulness and trusting the process
Right.
as ways to kind of release this resistance.
Yeah, I think mindfulness is all about, being present with your thoughts and feelings
Yeah.
without judgment,
Yeah.
really observing them
Right.
without getting swept away by them.
Okay.
And then trust is about having faith that things can unfold in the best possible way, even if you don't always see how,
Right.
even if the path isn't crystal clear.
So it's really about getting out of your own way, in a way.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this framework now,
Yeah.
right? We've got thoughts, emotions, beliefs, visualization, affirmations, gratitude-inspired action-releasing resistance. This all sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
But how does this actually translate into real-world results?
Right.
Thankfully, the summary provides some practical applications and examples to make this a little more tangible.
Absolutely. Moving from theory to practice is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
So the first area that it tackles is attracting financial abundance.
Oh.
So what practical steps does it outline?
Well, it suggests focusing your mental energy on abundance rather than scarcity.
Well.
So really shifting that internal dialogue around money and then vividly visualizing yourself experiencing financial well-being, whatever that looks like for you.
Right.
And then taking those inspired actions. So maybe it's pursuing a new business idea or asking for a raise or being more open to opportunities that you might not have even considered before.
Yeah.
And it even gives an example of a woman named Sarah who used these principles, practiced gratitude, and ended up getting a promotion and increased income.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it makes you really examine your own financial mindset.
Right.
Are you focused on what you lack or are you focused on what you could gain?
That focus shift is fundamental.
Yeah.
And then the next example that the summary looks at is finding love in relationships.
Okay.
So what's the approach there?
It's a very similar pattern, actually.
Yeah.
First, you want to get really clear on the qualities you desire in a partner, rather than just focusing on being in a relationship. Then you want to cultivate self-love and a strong sense of your own worthiness.
Right.
Because you have to believe you deserve a great relationship.
Absolutely.
And then third, you want to visualize yourself in a happy, fulfilling partnership.
Yeah.
And it gives an example here of a man named John
Okay.
who worked on his self-confidence, visualized his ideal relationship, and then met someone who fit what he was looking for.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So it prompts you to consider what you truly value in a partner and whether you're actually nurturing your own self-worth.
I think that emphasis on self-love as a foundation is so key.
Yeah.
Because you can't truly attract healthy love if you don't first cultivate it within yourself.
Totally.
And then from there, the summary moves to improving health and well-being. So what are the recommended steps there?
So here the steps are focusing on vibrant health rather than illness. Visualizing yourself feeling energetic and well, and then taking inspired action in the form of healthy lifestyle choices.
Okay.
Like nutritious foods, regular exercise, getting enough sleep, that kind of thing.
Daily practices.
Yeah, and the example here highlights a woman named Emily who visualized her ideal health, started eating better, exercising regularly, and experienced a huge boost in her energy levels.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it makes you think about, your own health goals and whether your daily habits are actually aligned with that vision.
It's a reminder that visualization isn't a magic pill.
Right.
It works in conjunction with the proactive steps that you take in your life.
Absolutely. So then we move into achieving career success. What does the summary suggest for that? So the process for that involves clearly defining your career aspirations, visualizing yourself, achieving those goals. So maybe that's, landing that dream job, starting your own business, or just excelling in your current field. Right.
And then taking inspired action.
Yes.
Which could mean, developing new skills, networking, seeking out new opportunities, or even just putting your best foot forward in your current role.
Right.
The example they give here is of a man named Mark. Who visualized his dream job, affirmed his own abilities, took some courses, volunteered in his field, and ultimately got a big promotion.
That's great.
Yeah, so it encourages you to really picture your ideal career path.
Yeah.
And consider the practical steps that you might feel inspired to take.
I love how throughout all of these examples, you can see how the mental focus and the real world action are so intertwined.
You're just not just one or the other.
Right. It's not either or, it's both and.
It's like this beautiful dance between the two.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, we have creating a more general positive mindset, which seems like the foundation that everything else is built on.
The foundation upon which everything else can flourish.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what are some of the key recommendations there? Well, they suggest making a conscious effort to practice daily gratitude.
Okay.
Actively challenging and replacing negative thoughts with more positive and empowering ones. And surrounding yourself with positivity.
Yeah.
So whether that's, supportive people, uplifting content, or inspiring environments.
Exactly.
And they give an example here of a woman named Lisa who started a gratitude journal and used affirmations to cultivate a more optimistic outlook on life.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So these are all, relatively simple practices,
Right.
but they can have a huge impact.
Powerful practices that anyone can integrate into their daily routine.
Totally. Okay, so now we've got all this good stuff.
Yeah.
These great tools and strategies to work with. But the summary also dedicates a whole section to common mistakes that people make and trying to apply these principles. So why is it so important to understand these pitfalls?
Because, it's easy to misinterpret or misapply these ideas.
Yeah.
And knowing what to avoid can really increase your chances of success.
Right.
So the first mistake it points out is focusing on what you don't want.
Okay.
Why is that counterproductive?
So the idea here is that your attention is like a spotlight.
Okay.
Whatever you focus on, you give energy to. So if you're constantly thinking about what you don't want, like, I don't want to be in debt.
Right.
You're still focusing on the concept of debt.
Exactly.
The summary suggests that you should shift your focus to what you do want.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I don't want to be in debt,
Right.
you could say, I want to be financially free.
I want to be abundant.
I want to have, X amount of dollars in my bank account.
Exactly.
It's about training your mind to dwell on the positive outcome that you desire.
Yes. And, this reminds me of that classic example of don't think of a pink elephant.
Yeah.
And what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Right. A pink elephant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like our minds don't always process those negatives in the way that we intend them to.
Totally. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So the second common mistake is doubting the process.
Okay, how does doubt actually undermine your efforts?
Doubt is a major roadblock.
Okay.
It introduces this conflicting energy into the equation
Okay.
that essentially cancels out your positive intentions.
So it's kind of like taking one step forward,
Yeah.
2 steps back.
Exactly.
You're not really getting anywhere.
And the summary emphasizes the importance of trust.
Okay.
Trusting that the process is working, even if you don't see immediate results.
That can be hard,
It can be very challenging.
especially when you're, in those early stages and you're not seeing any progress.
It requires a certain degree of faith and patience
Yeah.
and allowing things to unfold in their own time.
I feel like doubt is probably one of those biggest forms of self-sabotage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the sneakiest forms of self-sabotage.
Totally. And then the last mistake that the summary talks about is taking action out of desperation.
Yes.
How is that different from inspired action?
So action taken from desperation often stems from a place of fear, anxiety, this feeling of lack.
Okay.
It feels very forced and rushed,
Right.
and often leads to burnout and frustration.
So it's almost like that frantic energy is
Right.
counterproductive.
Yes, and the summary even suggests that desperate action can actually push your desires further away
Interesting.
because it's rooted in that negative energetic state.
So it's almost like you're coming at it from this place of, I need this to work. I
Exactly.
need this to happen.
Yeah, like I need this to fill some void within me.
Right.
And that energy of neediness can actually be repulsive.
Wow. Okay. So it's really important to check your motivation
Absolutely.
and make sure that you're acting from a place of, inspiration rather than desperation.
Yes, it's about asking yourself, is this action fueled by fear
Yeah.
or by genuine inspiration?
Yeah. That's a really insightful distinction, I think.
It's a subtle but powerful distinction.
It really is. Okay. So just to recap, the common pitfalls to watch out for are focusing on the negative, letting doubt creep in, and acting out of desperation rather than inspiration.
Precisely.
And these are crucial reminders, I think, for anyone who's trying to apply these principles.
Absolutely. Avoiding those common mistakes can make a world of difference in your experience
Totally.
and the results that you see.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into the summary of the law of attraction, the core takeaway seems to be that our thoughts and emotions really do carry a significant weight in shaping our personal reality.
That's right. And, the summary suggests that actively engaging with these principles
Yeah.
involves, a conscious and ongoing commitment
Yep.
to shifting your mindset, to harnessing the power of visualization,
Yeah.
to cultivating those positive emotional states,
All right.
and to taking aligned action,
Yeah.
all while, minimizing those internal resistance and those doubts.
Right. And it's a process.
It is a process.
It's not something that just happens overnight.
It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth.
This has been a really illuminating conversation, I feel like.
Me too.
It's given me a lot to think about.
I agree.
So, for you listening out there, here's a final thought to kind of leave you with.
Okay.
What is one specific area of your life where intentionally shifting your focus So shifting your thoughts, shifting your emotions might lead to some surprising shifts.
Interesting.
You know, maybe it's an area where you've been feeling stuck or stagnant. Maybe this is an opportunity to experiment a little bit with this idea of conscious creation.
I love that that's such a wonderful invitation to our listener to really kind of, take these concepts and actively engage with them.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in this deep dive, there's so many facets to this work.
Right.
So many different angles and nuances to consider.
And this is really just a starting point.
Exactly.
This could be a launching pad for further personal exploration and maybe even, diving into the full book.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a read.
It's a fascinating exploration of these principles.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
Sounds great.